Welcome into the best in paranormal programming. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. I have got a great show lined up for you guys today. Here's the deal. Today we are celebrating women. I don't know why we don't do this every day in the paranormal. I don't know why we have to have a special day to do this, but we're doing it today. You know, it was the Knights Templar. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the Knights Templar used to pray to Mary Magdalene. They didn't, although they were warriors of Christ, they would pray to Mary Magdalene. Why Mary Magdalene? Because they believed that she was the one to be deified. She was the one who brought the deity into the world. She was, I'm not using this in a derogatory term, but she was the portal that brought the Christ into the world. She was the one who was the I want to say, the connection between the divine and the earth. She was the true one that was the one to be worshipped. She was the one who was the divine. And I know that may shake some people of the patriarchy. That may shake some guys out there who are listening right now. But the fact of the matter is maybe we have it a little mixed up here, guys. Maybe we're looking at things maybe a little differently than we should. I heard another thing, and I don't remember who said it recently, but I heard another quote that said, you know, women are probably more connected to God than men are. And maybe a patriarchal society isn't the way we should be looking at it. Because if you look at it, and I'm going to use the word portal again, and this is the way the quote was set up, was women truly are the portal between the divine and the earthly. If you think about it, women are the ones that bring in the soul from the divine, connect it with the body, and deliver the body to the earth. And I thought that was such an interesting and beautiful quote. What do us guys do? We deliver the seed and then we go off and we go to sleep. I mean, we don't really do much. But it's the women that deliver the divine to the earth. It's the women who really, when we think about it in the paranormal, are still connecting us to the divine. We don't really have much to do here, guys. I mean, we walk around with a couple of instruments in the dark and we scream into the dark hoping to find a ghost. A lot of women out there are really more connected to the divine than we are. So why is it that we're not featuring them more in paranormal programming? Why is it when I turn on my television set, I'm looking at guys leading paranormal groups? Well, let's hope we can change that a little bit more. I know that there are females out there that are on paranormal television. I try to feature them a little bit more on this program. I know there are women that are out there on podcasts. I have 2 female co-hosts on this show, and there's a reason for that. Mally Fox and Jessica Freeberg are very, very talented. And I hope to feature them as much as I can. They're intelligent, they're funny, they've got a lot to add when it comes to their knowledge of the paranormal. My soapbox, I will get off of it right now and bring in our guests, because our guests today are incredibly talented. They're incredibly intelligent, and they have a lot to offer. And they've done it in this new book, Women on the Fringe, Groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal. And a lot of these women in this book today, you've heard on this program. And they've brought so much to the paranormal. Let's bring in our guests today who have written this book, Denise Agnew, Marie D. Jones, and Nicole Strickland. We'll get their bios from them. Ladies, welcome in to Darkness Radio. And I know you've all been here before, so yeah. I want to thank you for being back on this program and taking the time to all appear today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So
awesome.
First of all, I want to commend you all for writing a great book and for getting all of these wonderful women together to talk about their histories, their rich histories, their accomplishments. I want to start out with Marie. What's the passion behind this project, and why do we have to remind people about what it is that women have done in the paranormal?
That's a really good question. I think because the 3 of us are female, and we always felt like it was not really a problem for us, you know, personally, but externally, there still seemed to be a lot of resistance or categorizing women into certain acceptable fields, if you want to say that. And so, Nicole and I were chatting about writing a book together, which we probably should have done like 10 years ago. And Denise and I were doing a lot of writing together. And we just all kind of decided, hey, let's do this. This would be really cool. Because we all three of us know so many great women who are not necessarily like the famous names and faces that you see on the TV shows. Because really, we eventually had to choose only a certain number of women could make it into the book, or it would have been like a Stephen King novel. But I mean, we could easily do another volume or two because there's so many women out there. But I think it really was just because we were seeing like the glass ceiling it's being shattered now. When this project came together, it was almost 2 years ago. We kind of thought maybe we could help completely shatter it, because it seems like there's an awful lot of hammering on that glass ceiling and making cracks and breaking through here and there, but there's still sort of a resistance to embracing everything that women bring into this scientifically, psychically, intuitively, what have you.
Nicole, why? I mean, you've had a rich history with not only working, on the Queen Mary, working on TV and radio, working with a lot of rich paranormal history. But why is it that you feel that we have to keep hammering home that women are just as important in this industry as men are?
Well, that's a good question. I think Marie hit it on the head of the nail. I think, and this goes back even to the spiritualist movement, I think there's that idea that, okay, women are reserved as the woo-woo dreamers. They're the psychic mediums. They can't really embrace science as well as men. And I don't believe that. And that's being shattered because, in my opinion, channeling and getting in touch with that intuitive side is of utmost importance. To me, that's more important than using a bunch of different equipment. So it's weird that thought kind of is out there, generally speaking, but I think that's changing. And we are seeing that women can be scientific, can embrace science, can be intellectuals in the science aspect, in the black and white version of it, but also accepting the fact that, if you're dealing with paranormal energy and spiritual energies, you need to embrace that intuitive side as well, because both go together. I always feel that, okay, embracing metaphysics, embracing the intuitive side, as well as balancing that with the science side, really gives it a more holistic approach. So I think we're starting to see that.
Denise Agnew, I want to thank you for, again, being on the program. There are some amazing scientific women in this book. Tell me, it's not hard to find them, but why is it that there are some maybe male hosts out there in paranormal podcasting, in paranormal TV shows that may be staying away from the more scientific women out there? Are we afraid of some of the maybe opinions that are out there, or maybe are we intimidated by what they may have to say? There's a lot of good scientific facts and opinions being put out there by women scientists.
Oh, for sure. I think it's at the end of the day, it's kind of a really complicated thing. And sometimes I think it's more complicated than people want to admit. Because I know I'm absolutely certain that a lot of the men that we see on television who are working in the paranormal field would totally be accepting of having more women alongside them, working with them in whatever specialty they have. But I do think, and not having been on any of those kinds of programs, I can't say for certain, but my guess would be that a lot of times, because production companies and streamers and all of that are looking for what they think is going to be the most popular kind of television. And if they were used to right from the beginning, the first Ghost Hunters, which I think came out in something like 2004, something like that, that kind of set the stage for what a ghost hunting team looked like. And even though they did have people come in, like they had the case managers that, the Ghost Hunter show had right at the beginning, it was always a woman it was the case manager. She was kind of doing the clerical work, if you think about it. And sometimes going on the ghost itself, well, but a lot of times they were very secondary. And so it sort of set it up that way. And so I think that's what people expected. And I also think that people expect, even though they don't necessarily think about it, it isn't always conscious, that women are the damsels in distress that you see in the Gothic novels that are going to be afraid of something. Which is funny because I know lots of men that if you put them in a dark room and go ahead and sit there and wait, to see what you hear, they're like, no way am I doing that. And I'm like, bring it on, sit me in the dark room by myself. Okay. But which is not to say anything bad about men. It's more, I think there's still a little bit of socialized thought process going on in there. But I do think there are plenty of men out there that are totally open to having women join them.
Well, 2 words for you, Denise. Dude run came from a guy. I'll just put it to you that way.
That pretty much summarized paranormal television for the next how many years? Yeah.
It was on T-shirts and everything.
That's right.
Yeah.
How funny.
But Denise, I do want to get your opinion of this, and that is, there were a couple of females like on TV that kind of grew out of that case manager role. When you talk about Amy Bruni and you talk about Katrina Weidman, both of them really, I think through their strength, kind of broke a little bit of that glass ceiling. That glass ceiling is still pretty intact when you talk about paranormal TV, and especially with the moves that WBD they made recently. I mean, they kind of cleared the slate as far as paranormal TV went. They went to more reenactment shows. And that has nothing to do with them or their performance whatsoever. I must state that that's an economic thing. But they really, in Amy and Katrina stepping forward and stepping more into the spotlight, I think really have shown that female investigators can step into that lead and carry a show, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, and that's because they know they can too. And I'm sure there are plenty of women who, because they in their own way have kind of been socialized to be quiet and sit down and not, get themselves out there where people can see them. Women themselves have to kind of put themselves forward, I think, and realize I can do this. I don't care what anybody, thinks about it, my family, my friends or whatever. If this is what I want to do, then, it's one of my passions, then I just got to go ahead and do it. And I've noticed that a lot of times if people look at you a little bit sideways at first, if they notice that you're not backing down with that and you're not apologizing for it, suddenly they're like, oh, okay. It's cool. And again, talk conscious to them first, but then they just say, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Well said. Yep.
Yeah. Let's go around the horn here and let's talk a little bit about each one of you, and let's toot our own horns here for a second and go over the bios real quick before we move on to the actual book and talk about some of the distinguished ladies in the book and some of the highlights here, because man, you have got it jammed packed full of some very, very talented people that we want to go through. And of course, we're not going to get to everybody in the book today. Again, we're going to encourage people to go to the link in the description of the show and get this book. And I encourage you to get this book because there are a lot of talented people that you're going to want to get to know in this book. Let's start again with Marie. Marie, I mean, your list of accomplishments is huge, but we had you first on in 2006 with the science book. But tell people a little bit about yourself. I
hate when people ask you that because it's like, oh, okay, I'm the son of a sharecropper. Well, I've been writing all my life and obviously have accumulated a lot of credits. And science was, I think, still my favorite book and always will be. But I grew up in a household where my mom was really creative, so I got the writing from her. Well, my dad was a scientist. He was a geophysicist and a seismologist, and I got my love of science from him. And what was really cool is that he was totally obsessed with UFOs.
Yeah.
So from the time I was very, very young, I was introduced to that subject. And I love to read. And I, for some reason, would go to the library, and I was drawn to books on science and nature, but also ghost stories. And I don't know how I knew about Bigfoot, But when I was little, I told my mom I saw Bigfoot in the woods behind our house. So I think because my dad was so open-minded about what science was, that I grew up believing and knowing that there is a seen reality and an unseen reality, and that that's perfectly normal. And my dad would always say to me, just because we don't know the science behind the paranormal doesn't mean there isn't a science behind the paranormal.
Yeah.
So that's driven a lot of the books and things that I've written over the years.
Okay. And again, I encourage people to check out, we're going to have links to all of your information, your websites and everything here in the description of the show. And again, I want people to you each have chapters, or a chapter in the book here. The first chapter in the book details a little bit more about yourselves. Unfortunately, this podcast doesn't even have enough time to cover all of your accomplishments, because you all do.
I know, we have to give you the brief version.
I know, you all have very rich histories, and I don't feel like I'm going to do all of you justice, and I feel bad about that. But Denise, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I know that in the case of like myself and Nicole and Marie, we kind of all seem to start off as kids being interested in the scary stuff. And there, I'm no exception. I was interested in reading a lot of things. My mom was really great at encouraging me to read anything I wanted, and that meant all of the scary stuff. I read The Exorcist when I was like 11 years old. And so I was interested in the fiction stuff, horror stuff, but I was also interested in the nonfiction. So that was kind of feeding both of those things. And so from like very tiny age, I was reading all of that and watching all of those kinds of movies. And when I was about 14, I started writing stuff. I finally decided, hey, maybe I can try to write the stuff that is up in my head here that I'm thinking about horror-wise, and started doing it then. And I've been doing it ever since. I discovered back in 2018 that I am a medium as well. It took me a long time to figure it out, because mediumship, I thought it looked one way in particular, what I saw on TV kind of, how people, even in fiction, were mediums, and discovered through some classes that I took that is not how all mediumship works, and that's not how it looks for everybody. And so I've been on that journey since 2018, and just learning more all of the time about it, and doing readings and still writing and all that good stuff.
Okay. Nicole Strickland, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Similar to the other ladies here, I've been interested in this since childhood. And like Marie said, I knew at a young age that, there was something more to just what we see and feel on this planet. There's something else there. And so I would read and watch anything related to the paranormal. And interesting thing with my family, Italian on my mom's side and Irish on my dad's side. I come from a Catholic family, went to Catholic school, all of that. Pretty much my entire family is really open to what I do. I don't really practice religion anymore, just a personal choice of mine. But, I've had that support growing up as well. So just embraced this strong curiosity and the unknown, and that stayed with me. And here I am today. So it's, it's a journey, and it's great. I've learned from so many people in the field, and it's been just a passion project of mine for many years.
If I put out this call right now, am I going to get a hell yeah if I say female and Italian makes the best investigators? No, I'm
Italian. I'm a New York Italian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Us Italian women over here. Oh my gosh.
We bust bald.
There you go. I didn't know if I get a hell yeah, or if Denise would go, wait a minute.
I'm not Italian at all, but I've got Irish.
I know. That's why I thought I'd get a wait a minute out of you, Denise.
That's okay. She's in the same, mold.
I'm in the mold.
Denise gets honorary Italian. Is that the deal?
Yes, honorary.
Okay, honorary Italian. I love it.
Let's before we go to break, let's jump into. I want to jump right away into the book and into some of the distinguished people that you feature in the book. Man, there's so many. Okay, first of all, I want to start with my co-hosts, who turned me onto the book, first of all. So I got to tell you the story. Mally Fox. So we're sitting and we're doing supernatural news one day, and she goes, I asked her, so Mally, what do you have going on? And Mally is not one to toot her own horn. She just isn't. So I say, Mally, what do you have going on this week? And, oh, no, nothing much. Oh, yeah, you know what? By the way, I'm in a book. And I'm like, you have nothing going on. You're in a book. And she goes, yeah, I'm in a book. And I'm like, oh, that's something. What's going on, dear? Well, yeah, I'm in a book, Women on the Fringe. Okay, tell us about it, right? I mean, I'm like, come on.
So adorable.
Right? Toot your own horn. What's going on? Yeah, it's well, here, I got it right here. Oh, okay, so first of all, she's telling us about it on air. She hasn't told me off air that she's in a book or anything like that. Okay, well, who's the author? Oh, Marie D. Jones and Nicole Strickland and Denise Agnew. And yeah, I'm right here. I'm on page 106.
Oh, how cute. Oh, I love it.
Well, Mally, that's huge. Well, yeah, it was the same way I found out she was on Strange Evidence. Oh, yeah, I'm on a TV show. You're what?
Yeah.
Kind of unassuming. Oh, yeah, I'm on a TV show. Well,
a lot of these women are that way. It's like they're not, it's like, come on, we want to celebrate you. Just let us celebrate you.
Yes, and I'm like, well, come on, Mally, we gotta tell people about it. No, I don't know if I like watching myself. That's not the point. You've got all this great stuff to say. You've got all this, and she, I don't know. And then I find out by reading the book, not by her being on the show, I find out a couple of things about her in the book that I never knew.
That you never knew. How fun is that? Oh my God.
That is funny.
How is that?
That is funny.
That's awesome.
So I
think when people write, they let stuff come out that maybe they, are shy about saying when they're on camera.
Well, I find it, I guess I say that to say I find it refreshing because you're right, Marie. That's one of the things I was going to bring up. Sometimes it just is, here's paper, here's a pen, or here's your PC.
Yeah. Tell your story.
Tell your story. Yeah. Because sometimes this thing that I'm sitting in front of is intimidating if you haven't been sitting in front of it for a long time, this microphone.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to say what you have to say. Sometimes you have to say it through a written medium.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering, is it hard? And I want to start with Denise first. Is it harder for you to say things through a spoken medium than it is maybe like through this book? Was it easier for you to put it on a written page?
Oh, sure. And I think that's just because, in some sense, it's because of the writer, mentality. You're used to putting it down there, and obviously you can take as long as you need to put it the way you want to. And I know when I get, I've had some public speaking class stuff, but I'm not a natural extrovert. And so, all the stuff that people get from me that's extroverted is totally trained. It's not how I normally want to be. So if you put me in front of like some kind of camera or whatever, I have to, hopefully, the thing that I need in order to speak, period, actually operates, because you can easily get kind of tongue-tied by accident with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also difficult, I think, to make a short little thing about what do you want to know about me in these many seconds, and try to think of what people might want to know.
I found some very interesting blurbs in this book. I mean, even for the short amount that you give each distinguished guest in your book to tell something about themselves, some of them were pretty outspoken. Some of them dropped some pretty interesting bombs in the book. Nicole, I got to ask you, what's your most interesting fact from any one of these distinguished ladies that's in the book? What little blurb that got dropped in the book kind of surprised you?
Oh, gosh.
I'd have to go back and think about that.
Yeah, I know.
I honestly loved Sophia Temporelli's story.
Yes.
And I did not know a lot about it. I always admired her for the way that she began so young and was so professional. But a lot of these women in here, I was just like blown away. You did that? The Marie Dumont, the Bigfoot and Skunk Ape women. I mean, that to me is like so cool, so ballsy.
Yes, totally.
And then there's people that I thought I knew because I was friends with them. And I'm like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that happened to you, or you had that happen when you were young. And we're all writers, all three of us, and I think that comes naturally to us. I think a lot of these women really appreciated that we didn't call them and like, okay, I'm going to interview you over the phone, or on Zoom. So say what you have to say.
Right.
There was a freedom for them to just go write what they want and then get it back to us.
See, Marie, I've been on Sophia's show, and I was a guest on her show. I was honored to be on her show, first of all. I never in a million years would have thought that she would ask me to be on. And I'm a friend of Jean and Shirley, and have been for many, many years. When I got asked to be on her show, I was shocked. So I said yes right away. Yes right away. I wanted to be on her show. The thing that shocked me the most about Sophia's story was the fact that Jean didn't believe her right away.
Yeah, because I thought the same thing, right?
Yeah, if you know their family dynamic, Jean is so supportive of his daughter. To think that
he is absolutely,
think that
that's so cool.
Think that he didn't believe her right away, my jaw dropped.
Yeah,
I thought, that's
a good point.
Yeah, to think I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I wonder if it has something to do with if you're a skeptical believer at all, because I know that I'm a skeptical believer. So what happens with me sometimes is I even skeptical believe myself when there's something that happens to me or whatever, or, some kind of when I'm doing a reading or whatever the case might be. And I'm like, no, no, you're just making that up or whatever.
You're misinterpreting it.
You're misinterpreting it, or that's pareidolia, or that's whatever, And so I almost feel like the skeptical believer side could, that could be an explanation for maybe why he just sort of was like, well, I don't know, and I don't put words in his mouth, but that could be maybe.
That could be.
Right.
Totally.
And the one thing I really want people to understand about Sophia is not a young lady who's been handed everything. I think that's the one thing that people in the paranormal want to assume when they see a young lady who's 24 years old, who's had a show for 12 years. They think, oh, it's a novelty act. The kid's been handed a show, and she's been doing these.
She wanted to do it
right
at a young age.
So much admiration for her, and so professional.
Yeah,
and it was so funny because it makes me feel like we were all young once, but there's all these young people just goofing off on TikTok and this and that, and just being idiots. And, you've got someone who's incredibly articulate, especially talking about subject matter that, can be considered quote unquote fringe, who just so mature.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, God, what was I like when I was that age? I was probably like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I mean, protege is the best way to describe her. She really is. She's something special.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So her story is one of my favorites because, you talk about somebody who's been doubted and doubted and doubted since she was young. Doubted from seeing a spirit to doubted throughout her career. And now is being,
not only because she was female, but because of her age.
Right. And then now
she's female. She's too young. She can't possibly know.
Right.
Hi, Sophia.
She doesn't let it bother her. That's for sure. She keeps going and going.
Yeah.
I like that.
And now being celebrated. It was great to see her, on the cover of a magazine now. So it's great to see her celebrated. So I kind of want to shout out to Sophia today as well, because it's really, I love seeing her on the cover of a magazine this past month. So it was really cool. Let's see. I got to shout out my buddy too, who's in your book. Actually, I got a few buddies who are in your book. Let's talk about Nicole Tito real quick. Nicole Tito, who is, man, you want to talk about somebody who knows her stuff as far as EVP goes. Nicole, I want you to talk about your fellow Nicole.
My gosh.
Nicole Tito and her.
Nicole and Nicole, right? We spell it the right way, okay?
Right.
Nicole. Just had to put that out there. I met Nicole and Lisa Crick, I think it was 2008 when we were all, when they were members of the Ghost Research Society. I'm still a part of that group. And then they're with another team now. So I've known them for years and I've worked with them. And Nicole and Lisa, they have this mojo and this just amazing ability to collaborate. So they're both great at audio experimentation, EVP, ITC, the Estes method. So they often work together. So I've known both of them for years, and they're fabulous. They get great evidence. Their website, if y'all are interested, is ghostly-voices.com. So it's been an honor for me to work with them over the years. We've done Waverly, we've done the Queen Mary, we've done the Lincoln Theater in Decatur, Illinois. So it's always fun to watch them and see what types of audio evidence they get. So they're really masters at that.
Nicole has a great book out there, Women in the Paranormal. Make sure that you check our archives, because her program, my program with her, is in our archives. Make sure you check that out. Again, separately. We want you to listen to the rest of this program first with these great guests. Let's take a break right here. When we come back, we're going to talk about more great women in the paranormal in this great book that we're talking about here, Women on the Fringe, Groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal. My guests are Denise Agnew, Marie D. Jones, and Nicole Strickland. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about a woman who's been on Shark Tank, has been a TV executive, and is a psychic medium who actually goes out and helps children who have been, let's just put it this way, kidnapped, killed, and are deceased, and are actually going to her to help find them. It may sound like a familiar story. It's because she's been on the show before. I'm talking about Kirsten Parsons Hathcock. We'll talk about her when we come back. We'll also talk about some other amazing women in the paranormal. I want to talk about some women who have passed away when we come back as well. Some of the four mothers, I believe we would call them, in the paranormal. And I want to talk about an interesting one with our guests that I read about, who I've never had on the show, but I think I'm going to reach out to. I want to talk about Etheria when we come back. An interesting person I read about who, man, after reading about her, I've got to know this woman. I'll tell you, and we'll tell you about her when we come back, and you'll know exactly who we're talking about, because she's been contacted by ET and has had her name changed. I believe it's by ET. I don't know if it's Spirits ET or what it is. Our guests will tell you about her when we come back, because boy, is her story something else. When we come back, we'll talk more about Women on the Fringe, Groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal. When we come back here on the best in paranormal podcasting, this is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the best in paranormal programming. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. The book is Women on the Fringe, Groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal. My guests are Denise Agnew, Marie D. Jones, and Nicole Strickland. We've got a link in the description of this program. Go get this book, folks. I'm telling you, lots of great women in the paranormal, lots of groundbreaking women in the paranormal in this book that you need to... I can't name them all. I could sit and read the laundry list of women that are in here. We're not going to get to everybody today, but our own Mally Fox is in this book. There's some great women in here, women like Shannon LeGros. I do want to talk about Dr. Heather Lynn real quick. One of the women in the field that is probably one of the most intelligent women in the field. Marie, tell us a little bit about Dr. Heather Lynn and her, not only her qualifications, but some of the great things she's done in the field.
I was on a show of hers years ago, and she described herself as a dark archaeologist. And I always thought, oh, that's a kind of a weird thing. But what she does is she looks at archaeology and archaeological discoveries and our history from the viewpoint of the occult, the paranormal, not just like social and historical perspectives. And I follow her on Facebook, and she's always doing brilliant books. Her husband is the most awesome guy, and she does public speaking. But when we were going through the women, what happened is each of us bought in a group of women that we either knew personally or that we had reached out to. And I knew about her, and I was supposed to be on her show for a book that I had done, Celebrity Ghosts and Notorious Hauntings. And we just kept missing, like, just missing a date to get on the show. And I thought, well, I don't know. Is that really paranormal? Like, but it is fringe. Yeah. And so even with choosing some of these women, we were almost second guessing, like, well, what is fringe? But wait a minute, this is not just ghosts and aliens and cryptids. We got to include the whole gamut of women that are doing incredible things.
Right.
But yeah, she's brilliant. She's really is.
She's amazing.
Lovely.
She's one of those, to me, she's one of those bucket list. Eventually I'll get her on the show, but she's amazing.
I will message her and say, go on Tim's show.
Oh, I'd appreciate it. I'd love to interview her. She's one of those brilliant mind type people who I really do think you could sit down and talk to her probably for about 3 hours and get one of those multi-podcast, type.
She's very generous with information too.
Yeah, she really is. Yeah. And again, she's one of those chapters in the book that you sit and you read the chapter and you could dissect the chapter and go, wow, there's so much here in such a short time frame. It's a short chapter, but she layers the information in there, and she feeds you little nuggets of information, and you go, you could expound on all that if you just took.
And that was really hard for us, is that we had to give a word count because we knew we wanted a certain number of women featured, and maybe we could have made the book a little bit bigger, but the restrictions were because of us saying, okay, don't write 10,000 words. So you read through a lot of these and you're like, more. But like what I think is really cool is, you could go find her, on the internet and on her website and learn all about her on social media. So, and that's one of the things that we really wanted to do. Hey, here are these women. Here's their basic story from their own mouths or fingers. And now go find out more about them.
So there's a controversial statement to me in your book. And I'll tell you what it is. And then I want to get the opinion from each one of you. And I'll tell you what it is. And to me, it's a little controversial. I'm not trying to, pardon my French here, I'm not trying to stir up shit. Okay. I believe it was, is it Diet Renee? At and she just drops it right at the end of her, at the end of her chapter, where she says, "Yeah, I know people respect him, but I'm not a big fan of Ed and Lorraine Warren."
Yes.
Yeah, and at the end of your book, I mean, you pay homage to Lorraine Warren and her. You have an in memoriam segment at the end of your book. And she's one of the ones that you pay homage to. There's also somebody else in the book, and the name escapes me as to who it is that works with the Warrens Foundation. And there's plenty of respect, especially now after the Conjuring movies have come out. You've got a whole new generation that has a brand new respect for the Warrens. But it's
Heather Landon is that person.
Yes,
that works
thank
with
you.
Them. Yeah,
thank you, Nicole. Thank you. Sure. But Diet kind of drops that little bomb, like, I think they're kind of full of BS and everything was a demon. And it's like, whoa! Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion and what they believe. But she's like, nope, the evidence is there. Go look at it. And it was like, whoa, okay. So she's kind of in that camp. So I guess, and again, this is only opinion, and you can choose to eschew it and throw it away if you want, and choose to say no comment, Tim, if you want. But I want to go around the room and see what you guys think of that. I want to start with you, Nicole. What do you think?
At the end of the day, I think differing viewpoints, stepping outside of those four corners, kind of testing your own theories and your beliefs is what makes this field succeed. If we were all the same and had the same thoughts, then there'd be really no advancement. And so, Ed and Lorraine Warren both, and, speaking of Lorraine, they really studied and honed their craft, whether it's you believe in it or not. And at the end of the day, you have to celebrate that. And so that's my thought. You know, you can have, everyone has their differing opinions, of course, but in this field, you know, we have to embrace each other, whether we believe or not, because one thing that we may initially not believe in, a theory perhaps, could end up being tested and not maybe prove something, but really give us more knowledge down the line. So that's kind of my take on it.
Okay. Marie?
I am, as a writer, the most important thing to me is not censoring anybody. Sure. I think when you do that, then there's no point to any of this.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with what any of these women say and think.
Absolutely.
Because we were asking them to give us their stories, not, hey, a censored version that, so we can make it all nice and in the box and non-controversial. And there's things that women talk about in here that may not necessarily align with what I feel like might be going on. But I'm just as fascinated by their opinions and their ideas. And they may not like certain people or may have had negative experiences. No, we needed to not censor.
Okay.
And I think we did a really good job of that.
Yes.
We did.
Yes.
We did have a small publisher early on that talked about wanting to make the book more academic, and it would have involved a lot of censorship of what and it's like, no, luckily we decided to do this on our own. Right. So we could have that freedom, and so could these women.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Denise, what did you think?
Well, I have to agree with Nicole and Marie, because if you think about it, the whole idea of Women on the Fringe is people that are willing to do things, talk about things, explore things that, a huge chunk of people are not willing to do. And the fact that they're brave enough to do that is fantastic. And I can take inspiration from all of these ladies. If there maybe perhaps is, anybody out there who's considering getting into the paranormal in some way and doing their own paranormal investigation, whatever the case might be, I think a lot of people are used to seeing things on television that's censored in a certain sense. And, kind of has to be. There's something that really be said about that. I mean, you have to, can't get around it really. But when you see things in a certain box and you only have I know that after Ghost Hunters came out, there were a lot of people who got the idea when they started their ghost hunting team that there was only one right way to do this ghost hunting thing. Yeah. And it took quite a while before several more shows started coming out where they were doing things that were slightly different from that. But you literally would run into people that are like, no, you can't do this. You can't have a medium. It's not scientific. You can't do this and that. And it's like, well, wait a minute. A lot of these things, these instruments that you're using as an example, may not be as scientific as you think they are. Yes, yeah. So if you think about it, it kind of makes sense that, whether we agree with what she said or not, that she's like everybody else in the book. We're all on the fringe. We're all trying something new and different.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of being brave, I want to talk about a guest I've had previously on True Crime Tuesday who I've gotten to be a little bit of friends with, who I'm quite proud of, and that's Kirsten Parsons Hathcock. Talk about a go-getter and somebody who's been out there. I want somebody other than me to tell her story because, let's see here. Who would like to talk about her? Denise, you want to talk about her a little bit?
Yeah, she's one of the ladies that I brought in. So I thought of her because I had seen her information. I'm trying to remember where I first saw her because I didn't watch Shark Tank, so I didn't know anything about her from that. Now I remember. The light bulb just went on. I was taking courses with Nicole Stevens, who is a psychic medium and pretty well-known person. And she had Kirsten on one day to talk about her story on a Zoom that we were all on in class. And that's how I first got to know who she was. And I thought it was a fascinating story, and I kind of vibed with a certain portion of it because Kirsten did not start to understand that she had mediumship abilities until, I think she says in the book, it's about, if I screw this up, Kirsten, I'm sorry, it's 2010, I think it is, somewhere around there. So about around the same time, I think that she was doing the Shark Tank thing. She started to hear children's voices and then started to, after a certain point in time, was getting visions as well, I believe, of what, something that was happening with the kids. And then without giving away too much of what you would read about what happened, she also started to understand some things about herself and her own childhood, which I won't go into because, we want people to read that in the book, and it's very personal too. So, but so she was finding out that there was a personal connection that these children, and as a medium, I understand this, and a lot of people don't know this, that a lot of mediums vibe with spirits that those spirits know that you're going to understand them. Like, as an example, I vibe with, it sounds horrible, but people who commit suicide. I get a lot of people who committed suicide that will come and talk to me, or were murdered, one of the two. But so that was the case with Kirsten. She had a connection with children who had been murdered and or treated horrible types of abuse. And so as time goes on, she was able to help with and I'm gonna mess up, so I'm gonna look in the book real fast.
Sure.
The name of the institute that she's working with, in case anybody wants to look it up. I'll do that real fast. It's called the National Institute for Law and Justice. And she works with former retired detective Mark Pusey. I probably missed Mark's name too. But but so she works with him and tries to help, find children and do a lot of that type of work.
I know I took a quick look at her Facebook before we jumped on air. I know she's got a virtual run that she's helping to sponsor. Again, I would encourage you guys to go to her Facebook. And it's real easy. It's Kirsten Parsons Hathcock. Check out her Facebook because she's got a virtual run that she's helping to sponsor. Trust me, you can be a fat boy like me and help out. You don't have to get out there and run, folks, but you can help contribute and help out. It's for all missing people, and for that cause there. She's just again, tireless is a word that I don't like to use quite often because none of us are tireless, but she's as close to tireless as you can get when it comes to missing and exploited people. So she really is quite something else. She's one of the special ones out there. So I'm glad you guys got to feature her in the book. Another person who I'm glad you guys got to feature in the book is someone for this month, for some reason, I've had Small Town Monsters featured a lot in this podcast, but Shannon LeGros is a member of Small Town Monsters, not only Small Town Monsters, but she has her own podcast as well. She's another amazing broadcaster who has come so far in such a short amount of time and is doing some amazing things in the paranormal. I'm wondering if one of you would like to speak to Shannon.
Yeah, I will. I've known her forever. And I was on her show years ago. And we hit it off really well. We both had a sort of a similar sense of humor. And she just really, her show just started to explode. And now I think she has a small publishing company too. Because she was like Jill Hansen, who is another person that I just adore so much, was a super high quality host. And, the way that she would talk, and she was so knowledgeable, so articulate. And she got invited to do, I believe, the Small Town Monsters. I don't know if it was the UFO one that came first, and I think is doing a Bigfoot one or already has taped it, and started a small publishing company since then. And she's just exploded. And I believe my agent represents her too, because I'm pretty sure that happened. But, again, she was someone that one of us knew for a long time and thought, we got to include her. We got to include that person.
She absolutely. She just did. She was just out with Aaron Deese. They did The Land Between the Lakes, and there's a movie coming out, a documentary coming out they were both out there in search of Dogman. And
Dogman, yeah.
Oh, you want to talk about a subject that's absolutely frightening. And some of the stuff, I just got done reading that book. And some of the stuff, it sounds like that they went through out there. I can't imagine. But, you know, again, Shannon's got more fortitude than I can ever imagine going after a lot of this stuff. And she has my utmost respect, I tell you, because she's just put herself in a lot of situations that I don't know most people would put themselves in.
Male or female.
Right. But man, she gets after it. So again, I tip my cap to Shannon LeGros. That is one brave person. That's for sure.
Exactly.
That's for sure. I want to talk about the Reverend Donna Vall.
Oh yes.
She is one person who, you know, I think all of us at one time or another, we look for evidence of, for those of us who aren't connected spiritually. And I guess I envy Nicole and Denise. I envy you for being able to reach out with a psychic sense and being able to connect with the other side, because you've got that sense of, well, you know, at any time, the other side will talk to you and you have that verification that there's something there on the other side. But there's some of us who maybe at times, I guess, dumb as a post and don't, you know, we don't have that other side speaking to us. But yet here's Reverend Donna, who she gets not only the other side talking to her, but she can give people that evidence of the other side.
Yeah, the spirit art.
Fascinating.
Through spirit art of all things. Who would like to speak about Reverend Donna and tell us what exactly she does through her spirit art? It's amazing what she does to give. She travels. Not only does she do media and tell people about what she does, but she travels to different churches and does the spirit art. Who would like to tell us about Reverend Donna?
Yeah. Again, I've known her forever.
Okay.
And I was on her radio shows probably 15 years ago. So we've kept in contact all this time. In fact, she's writing a book that I'm kind of I'm guiding her with, you know, how to do a proposal properly, so she can really expand on her history with spirit art and how she does it. And I'm super excited because I think a lot of it was prompted by her inclusion in our book, and that's always really cool.
Really?
But yeah, it's like a channeling of a different kind. You know, instead of automatic writing, you're drawing. You're drawing images and faces that are related to a person that you might be talking to, and that has some meaning for them. And I mean, that's not something. I don't have that skill. And apparently she does, because we wanted to include some really good photos, and you know, there are some that are in there, but when you see them really big, and it's just amazing. And it's also amazing the testimonials that she's been getting. So I'm really excited to see the book that she comes out with.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Really cool.
There's only one other team I've ever heard of that works like that. That's Michael and Marty Perry. The whole, the whole, you know, getting the messages and then drawing everything out. But just the fact that she does it all in one is an amazing thing. I mean, you're one-stop shop, and it's a divine thing, you know, it's coming from divinity, and it's being, and the whole 14, I think you mentioned it in the book, Marie, 14 messages, 14 drawings in 1 hour at one time in front of a congregation. I mean, think about that.
Amazing. Truly amazing.
I know.
Yeah. But it goes back to what you said about, I think we all probably have that ability somewhere, but it's like singing. We can all sing, but we're not all going to be able to sing well.
Yeah.
And Donna's always been, you know, a really metaphysical, spiritual person. So it makes sense that she's able to tap into that part of it.
Well,
but I think for a long time, she probably felt just like a lot of these other women, like, you know, nobody knows what I'm doing. And so we were thrilled to have a nice long interview and be able to show some of the images too.
To give people perspective though, Marie, I really want to give people perspective, because I know quite a few comic book artists, and some of these guys are some of the fastest artists on the planet because they really have to draw quickly, both draw and ink, to get out monthly books in order to get paid. I mean, these guys get paid on commission. Some of these guys, if they're fast, do 3 whole pages a day.
Yeah.
3 whole pages.
Well, if she's channeling, I don't think it's her.
Right.
But I also think you kind of take on some kind of superhuman capabilities.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with automatic writing. You will hear people say they're writing way faster than they would normally. And just stuff that's coming out and they don't know where it's coming from or who it's coming from. And I think it's just sort of tapping into that source and just it's coming through. If you don't block it or resist it, it's going to come through fast and you're going to be, drawing and drawing and drawing. Obviously you want to get all the images out before they fade away or what have you.
But
Very true.
Yeah.
When I read 14 drawings in an hour, first of all, I thought, holy carpal tunnel.
No kidding.
Yeah. It's kind of like those people that do the drawings in courtrooms.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You see them
Right.
they're drawing and you're like, oh my God, that's a great drawing, now. So, yeah, I think it's just, it's a different kind of channeling.
Man, I mean, that's beyond inspiration. I mean, you're right. Something has to take you over to draw that fast. I mean, you can't.
Not something you would normally do in your day to day.
No, you can't be in your own body at that point. I mean, it's just, I'd love to be a fly on the wall and just watch that.
Yeah.
That in itself would be amazing.
I should talk to her about, I don't know, doing a YouTube channel. But I think, unfortunately, I think a lot of the drawings I'm not sure what the confidentiality is, although, I mean, she let us use some. But that's a really great idea. I might mention that to her. Have you, if in writing this book that you're doing, have you ever thought about doing sort of a demonstration? I know she does them in churches and she goes and speaks. But yeah, that'd be kind of interesting to see because then you could see.
I think
that,
I think just
how quickly they're doing it. And
just to film her on location at a church, and it would be fascinating programming.
I'll ask her. I'll write myself a little note.
Or to film her at a studio. If you had a studio audience and she just, she got the feeling of whoever was in the studio audience and you had her draw whatever messages she had for whoever was there, would be the most fascinating programming. Because
I will tell you this, she's so open to coming on radio and talking about her part in the book and what she does that I will certainly point her in your direction because that might be a really interesting show.
I find her again another person in your book I find absolutely fascinating. I just in the way that she also, I don't want to give away too much about her in the book because her story is absolutely amazing. But at one point she puts limiters as to what she can do, and then she opens herself up, and then more stuff comes in. I mean, again, the amazing part about ourselves, and I'm sure again, Denise and Nicole, you can speak to this more being psychic, but the amazing part of ourselves, we talk about as human beings, how far we can take ourselves based on belief. If you believe you can't do something, you won't do it. If you believe you can do something, you can achieve anything that you believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
I can definitely attest to that because I know that the best readings that I do are the ones where I get out of my own way.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a little harder for me to do. I have to really have to battle that, honestly. But it's definitely if I don't censor myself, because a lot of times I get like images that don't make any sense and they're just extremely random and they just bang, bang. They're just, coming in and, hearing certain things that don't make any sense. And the person will be sitting there going, oh my God, that's this and this and this and this or whatever. And I'm blown away because it's not like I necessarily know exactly what that means until they recognize what it means.
Yeah.
But they might go away. Yeah, they might go away because they don't recognize what I'm talking about. And then like 10 minutes later, they're like, oh, wait a minute. I just remembered.
Yeah.
So I think that's in some ways, the more I could see why she as an artist would certainly find the more that she was willing to open up with doing it and doing it in front of more people, the more that she would get.
Yeah.
Right.
Well said.
You know, I'm trying to remember, before we move on to the next person I want to talk about, there was an interesting statement. I don't remember who said it in the book, and I should have highlighted it or wrote it down. There was one person in the book who said something about having a certain level of testosterone and it affecting the psychic ability. Do you remember who it was?
Oh my gosh. Was that one of our essays in the beginning?
Yeah.
I might have been. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it might have been.
Was it?
Where we talk about the differences.
It might have been yours, Denise, the intuition article.
I think it might have been because, you know, when we were trying to decide who was going to write what articles, I think, and we said, okay, well, I'll do intuition. I was sitting there going, baffled as to what I was going to say about it, because if you think about it, intuition is just so kind of nebulous, and it's like, okay, what do you say? You know, so going and doing the research about it, I came across a lot of information. A lot of other people have written about the same thing. What I was writing about is certainly not unique, where they're like, okay, well, why are women supposedly more intuitive?
Yes.
Men are? So it was kind of like, you got different opinions on that maybe it's not really necessarily true. For example, that men are more or less intuitive than women. It's just a lot of times they will call it things like their gut. Had this gut feeling, or in the case of some guys, if they're feeling like intuition is too girly, they'll say, I came up with this logic, you know, and they put it in a logical thing, when maybe they came across it the same way a woman did. But it's how they interpret the information as them being logically minded and going through these steps to figure out what the answer is. Whereas women might be more likely to just say, okay, yada, yada, that's this thing. I'm just going to trust that and I'm going to go do that.
Yeah. But I like what you said, Denise, about instinct, right? I mean, because I'm reading what you wrote again, and you talk about how what men refer to as instinct, women refer to as intuition, and both of it is survival based, like an inner knowing that you might be in danger. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I think
the terminology is different.
Yeah, and I think that, and I'm trying to remember the testosterone part. I think was an article I came.
Oh, here it is. I found it.
I can't remember all the details on what I said.
No, please quote it.
Scientists in Spain from the University of Granada asserted that hormones in the womb have something to do with it. Intuition. A lower dose of testosterone before birth could cause someone to be more intuitive in adulthood. They showed in the study that women who were exposed to higher levels of testosterone tended to be less intuitive and may rely more on what is called reflexive rational analysis.
That was it.
Right.
Okay.
Yay.
Which I always, that backed up something that I always wondered about or always thought about. And when I read that, Denise, I went, you know what? The light went on, because I always thought to myself, and this was the theory I always had in my own brain, and that was this: you don't see as many male psychics. And I always thought to myself, well, this is my rationale and my reasoning why. When you see men go into battle, you see them going in, charging up or getting a higher boost of testosterone or a higher charge, they turn off their quote unquote instincts or their intuition, because they're charging forward to do something they have to do. So they're not listening to that instinct or intuition. They're charging forward to go into danger, when really they should be listening to their fight or flight instinct, right?
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
They're ignoring self-preservation.
You will actually come across soldiers who or Navy people, Air Force people that say that they had an instinct to do zig instead of zag.
Right.
Yeah.
That saved their life too. And so,
that's cool.
But I think it's kind of a combo, I think, of you're right. If you're just kind of charging in because you're told to charge in, that makes sense. You have somebody who's saying,
this is what
you have to do. but then maybe something says don't step left, or you're gonna, and so you don't, and then somebody else steps left and they hit the
a landmine or whatever. Yeah.
I read an article too. You guys probably have seen this somewhere. I want to say it was Scientific American. I don't remember the source exactly, but they said somewhere that there might be more neurons in a woman's brain than men, and that maybe that can contribute to the intuition. Aspect. I don't know.
Me too.
The thing through the middle, and because I can't remember what it's called, is thicker between the two halves in a woman's brain.
Oh yeah,
the connections. But I can't.
What is that called? Not the cerebellum. No, that's not it.
I don't remember now.
I can't either. Shoot. I took anatomy and physiology. I should remember, but I don't.
We're throwing around a lot of information, so that'll happen. That'll happen.
Yeah.
The other thing I found interesting, and again, I'm throwing out random facts from the book, and I don't remember who to attribute it to. One of the featured people in the book also said, and I love the quote because I've thought that too in the past, the Hadron Collider at CERN. They attributed it to maybe the fact that it went off in the late 2000s might have thinned the veil. And I thought, you know what? We've always attributed, and I'm trying to remember who that was. And I always thought, not only thinning the veil, we've always attributed it to, on this show, maybe even blurred the timelines, or maybe made the timelines a little thinner too, that maybe we've been put on a different timeline as a result of it as well.
The Mandela effect.
Yes.
Who said that? Yeah,
I know. I'm like, oh my God, who said that?
And I don't remember
reading it, of course. I just can't quite remember who said it.
And
that is interesting.
I should have wrote that down too, because I thought, you know what, that's a very astute observation as well, because something's a little hinky. And they fired it off recently too. They fired it off again this year, looking for. It wasn't necessarily dark matter, but they were looking to do something with molecules or particles again, trying to find the particles between, or the matter between.
The Higgs boson?
Yes. Well, I think it's something similar to that, Denise. It wasn't necessarily dark matter, but it was kind of those particles in between. They were looking to create them, the stuff that keeps the universe together. But they were screwing around with the universe again over there in Sweden. Don't
go on YouTube and watch all the videos of the lights in the in the sky. And I'm sure, I don't know if they're doctored or not. And that's when I wish my dad was still alive, because he would have. He would have jumped all over that stuff.
Totally.
But
I still don't think it's 100% safe over there. I really don't.
What's interesting, though? All of us out there trying to communicate with the other side, or even other beings, interdimensional beings, are we somehow creating a little bit of a shift ourselves in thinning that veil?
Well, what was interesting about that entire chapter, that entire slice in there, was I love the fact that it was all tied together to not only the Higgs boson stuff, but it was, okay, so now we have all these routers up and we have everybody trying to connect to the other side. Have we just ripped open this veil, or have we not ripped it open, but have we thinned it so much through not only earthly means, but our own selves trying to communicate with the other side? Have we just thinned out the veil so much that now it's so much easier to get to the other side, which is amazing thinking. And it's not one of us male chuckleheads over here throwing this out. It's you ladies who are throwing this out. Let's face it.
But it also brings up the point that if we're opening the veil to see what's on the other side, are we opening the veil to allow things to come here that we are mistakenly thinking come from another planet, or
Yeah, very true.
Playing God.
There's also kind of something that I haven't read the book, but there was a book written by a woman who was talking about what happened in Germany after World War II. And she proposes in that book, and I keep saying I'm going to pick it up because it sounds fascinating, that a lot of weird stuff started to happen in terms of people, just your ordinary person on the street, finding their houses were haunted more, and all of this kind of thing.
More paranormal stuff.
Yeah, more paranormal. And so one of the things that I think I've heard thrown out there, not just in that book, is that when you have any kind of period of time where there's a lot of turmoil and, you know, or whatever the case is, there becomes more interest not only in that kind of stuff, paranormal stuff, but that it's kind of like people are more willing to look into it. And it happens every time, like a war or some other kind of weird thing happens, like the pandemic, for example.
Right.
Well, like the Civil War, even during the spiritualist movement, that, you know, all the thousands of men that perished during that movement just launched more people into believing in life after death, even. So that makes sense.
Well, now let me spin this in a little bit different direction, but on the same path. I know probably all of us here have been to Gettysburg, but I want to ask Denise first, being you bring up World War II, have you ever been to a site that's been related to World War II? Have you been to Europe? And what impression have you got being there?
Well, I lived in England for 3 years. And so, yes, I definitely went to Dover, White Cliffs of Dover, the whole secret wartime tunnels. Not related to World War II, but I went to Culloden, where, of course, you had the war with the Jacobites, and also Hawaii, which is not Europe, but got to see Pearl Harbor, lived in Hawaii for 3 years. So, yeah, I definitely have been at places. Unfortunately, I've never gotten to Gettysburg. I'd love to do that. But, yeah, there's a lot. I mean, all you have to do is like live in some place like England, for example, and there is nowhere where there isn't World War II. So, in fact, I just recently found an exploded bomb, a very large one, and I forget which village or town it was in. I want to say it was close to a city where it was a World War II unexploded munitions.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's everywhere. Yeah.
What were your psychic impressions when you go through an area like that? Well, you know, whether it be Hawaii, whether it be England or wherever you're at, what do you get hit with psychically when you go through an area like that?
Well, it's interesting because it's very random in a way, because you kind of, if I go to some historical place, if I get impressions at all, it's kind of random for me. I mean, I'm sure there are psychics who can go and pick up things from everywhere that they are. I might be aware more of just a feeling of the history, which I think if you say to someone, oh, this place feels heavy, and you don't know why, I mean, you can't really explain why that is. Like with the case with Culloden, just the very idea that you were standing next to basically mounds that were a certain clan, like it would say, you know, McDonald clan here. And that meant the mass graves of all of those men who were in that clan who were buried in one spot. And in the case of like Dover, when you went into the wartime tunnels, there's always that impression of history that's right there, that's right in front of you. And so I think some of it's hard to distinguish between just the knowledge of what you know about that history and the parts that you might pick up, and you may not even actually be able to separate the two of them.
Well,
that's fascinating.
I want to ask Nicole, because you worked on the Queen Mary for years and years and years, and we know about the history of some of the World War II soldiers that have been there. So I know you've had experience with the POW soldiers that have been on that ship. I have to ask. I have to ask you. What kind of interactions have you had with some of those POWs, and what kind of impressions do you get from time to time?
You know, it's interesting. I mean, before I answer that, I think with the Queen Mary, and I think this might be with a lot of other sites that are really well-established, paranormally active sites. I almost think the Queen Mary is one giant time capsule. For some reason, the past, present, and future seem to fuse together. They're very magnetic, can transmit and receive spiritual type of messages. That's my thought with the Queen Mary. Over the years, I've had, you know, residual types of encounters and intelligent encounters with I mean, a lot of different energies, former crew, passengers, but speaking of World War II and POWs, a lot. And some of them have been very moving. One example, and I forget what year this was. I want to say it was like back in 2010, 2011, and we were down in the forward cargo hold pit, which is below the water line. And that is an area on the ship where they housed both German and Italian prisoners of war. We're talking like standing room only. and down in the very hot, humid climates, because the ship was designed for the North Atlantic route. So when she sailed in very hot climates, you can imagine the suffering a lot of these men had. So, standing room only, bread and water lowered down, and a lot of men sadly perished. And their bodies would be, unceremoniously tossed overboard. And there was one time down there, I was with Pat Wheelock and a few other people, and we were doing an EVP session. And I think it was me that asked, is there anything that we can do for you? And when I listened to it, I didn't hear it live. So when I listened to it, it was an EVP. When I got home, I heard a man, and it was interesting because he sounded very frail and weak in his voice in the EVP. And he said, like I said, in a very frail voice, "I'm hungry." So it was as if he was living that. Even though this was many, many years later, he was reliving that moment and answering it as if he, if we were back in that time. And that's a lot of and that attests to the fact, especially with World War II, it seems that the energy there is almost stuck in that time period, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's odd. It's but I've not been to England. My dad has.
Okay.
And my dad, interestingly, doesn't really carry his heart on his sleeve, but he went to Omaha and all these places, and he was moved to tears.
Wow.
Moved to tears.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Wow. Want to talk about one other lady here in the paranormal that, just fascinates me. And then I want to talk about a few that have left us, and then we'll wrap up the program here. I want to talk about Carrie Jane Ryan, otherwise known, or has had her name changed by forces she hasn't seen, to Etheria. This woman fascinates me to no end. Who got to know Etheria first?
She is my buddy. In fact, my email this morning, there are about 10 emails from her.
Really?
About the court against the FCC that astronomers have filed because of all the satellites that are being launched and how it's affecting their work. We talk every day about politics, everything.
Really?
And I've known her for years. And she was someone that came on late because here I am talking to her all the time. I didn't even think to hey, you want to be a part of this book until later. So she worked in Hollywood. She was an actress and started experiencing all kinds of strange, healing abilities and abductions. And she was told, I think, during a meditation, to change her name. Now, when she emails me, she goes by Etheria. Mm-hmm. But I call her Carrie every now and then. And does she
hate that when you call her? I'm sorry, Marie. Does she hate that when you call her Carrie?
She said, "Oh, I want to order a bunch of books," and I said, "All right, well, what name am I sending them to?" Send them to Carrie Ryan, please. Just somebody I've known for a long time that I thought had this incredible story. She's not. She doesn't like attention a lot. I kind of almost had to twist her arm a little to do this because when you read her story, a lot of it is just not necessarily hard to believe, but it's all, there's a lot of stuff going on. And, but I've known her long enough to know, and she's still having a lot of experiences. She's one of the most intelligent people I've ever known. And she sends me articles and links every day about chemicals in our food, and look what they're putting on the appeal on our fruit. And so we talk all the time, and her story is just super fascinating. But again, women on the fringe we were expanding the definition of what that meant with this book. We have a galactic historian in there, Constance Briggs, and it's like I had never heard of that. So she's a really cool person.
So to give our audience a little bit of an idea as far as Etheria goes, and I just want to hit the highlights here. So Carrie is basically, she knows she has a little bit of a psychic ability, but she's not really, she's kind of denying it, but she hears a voice that tells her basically what? That she's...
Change your name.
Change your name. And that your name is Etheria, and she asks, how is it spelled? Right?
Yeah.
And they tell her how it's spelled. and her life really isn't going well. And until she changes her name, then it.
Because it's funny because I never thought my name was right for me, Marie. I never felt right.
That's how I feel about mine.
Yeah, my mom told me years later it wasn't supposed to be my name. My name was supposed to be either Daphne or Carmela. But because they were raised Roman Catholic, you had to name your kids after saints or, Marie was from Mary. And so I totally relate. I mean, I don't think there's a part of her when you talk to her that is totally Carrie.
Really?
But then there's the Etheria, and I absolutely love her to death. But again, she messaged me earlier on Facebook and said, I'm not on social media a lot, but you always know where to find me if anything happens. And I thought it was kind of an odd thing to say, but we've been talking about a lot of stuff going on in the world.
Huh.
But yeah, her story is really cool. A lot of hypnotic regression and past life,
Yes, that fascinates me so much. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm completely intrigued by past life regression, hypnotic regression.
Yes, totally.
That gets me to no end and wanting to know what my past lives are. The thing that gets me is she seems very much to be not only a free spirit, but the fact that things hit her when she's out in public and she has to stop herself from wanting to go up to somebody. Boundaries are a huge thing with her. Wanting to go up and say...
With empaths and psychics,
Yeah, and wanting to go up and say, hey, I got a message for you. And she's learned that I can't go up to people and just say, hey, I got a message for you, because it's not always going to end well. And she's had to learn to have to curtail it. Now, the reason I love having Nicole and Denise here is, how often do you find yourselves, and I want to start with Nicole first, how often do you, and where's the line with you of having to say, I know when to approach somebody and when not to, and when do I give them the message and when don't I, especially when it may be or may not be somebody you have or haven't approached? I know that seems like a complex question, but I think you know what I'm saying here.
Yeah, I'm actually, I ascribe to the thought that everyone has psychic ability. It's like a sport that, or channeling ability. It's like a sport. The more you practice, the more you get used to it and whatever. So I don't openly classify myself as like a psychic medium. I just know throughout my life, throughout my childhood, I know that I just have ability. It comes down the maternal line. So I don't really do a lot of readings on people or anything like that. I use it in my everyday life. And then, of course, interestingly, remote viewing. And it's weird. And this is a whole different story. I've used it. I can channel really well missing people and those that have, especially with women, those that have passed away in a very traumatic way. That's interesting. So I'm probably not the one to ask because I don't really do a lot of like readings, but I know if I'm getting something on someone, I almost would want their permission first before I just would go up to someone and say, oh, hey, by the way, especially if it's like a stranger. Yeah. If it's a family member or someone I really know, then I might be a little bit more comfortable, in approaching. So, but I'm weird like that. Denise is better equipped to answer the question.
Denise, when do you know? When do you know when to and when not to approach somebody when you get that quick flash that says, hey, I got a message?
Well, it's interesting because I usually, I'll use this as an example, and this would happen too before I realized that some of this stuff was a psychic and mediumship ability, is I used to be in the commissary in the grocery store. And I'd be, the checker's doing her thing, and maybe there's a bagger over here and the bagger's doing their thing. And I would just, it wouldn't be a message necessarily, it'd be more like a telepathic thing. I would hear them say something like, oh God, I can't wait to get out of here or whatever. And I'm thinking, and I'm like, wait a minute, is that me? There's that skeptical believer thing when I'm thinking, okay, sure, I'm a writer, I'm making this up, right? And then like a minute later, the bagger would look at me and say, I can't wait to get out of here today. This is really hot here or something. And so I'd be like, holy crap, Yeah. and I wouldn't say to them, oh my gosh, I just heard you say that. Because they probably, their mouths would have gone, hanging open, and it would have been like, sure, lady, you're crazy, lady, So yeah, I would only do that if it was somebody I knew really well, or maybe they were there, to talk about this sort of thing, and said, hey, do you mind if I just spit out what I'm thinking? And usually the reading, if it's a real reading, that's what they want to know. So you just tell them whatever you get, and you just ask them, is it okay? Do you want to know everything? Do you want to know bad as well as good? Or, do you just want to know good stuff? And then you just spill it. But yeah, the bagger lady, that I was like, no, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe you were sensing a moment in time that was going to happen before it actually happened.
Oh, that's a good point.
Certainly possible.
That could be, I find that interesting.
Good point.
Yeah, there's so many angles you can go with this sometimes.
Yeah.
Drive yourself crazy trying to figure out what it
I know.
Very good point, Nicole. That's fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah.
One of the chapters that I'm glad you guys put in here, and very glad you put it in here, is to recognize the women who have gone before us, who have passed recently, who really do need their moment in the sun that we shouldn't forget, including Linda Godfrey. Of course, we mentioned earlier Lorraine Warren and Strieber, who I don't think probably gets enough recognition. Not just the wife of Whitley Strieber, but also had her own contributions to the field. And again, there's a little bit more of a description here, but one that I want to recognize here on the show, who really gave me a lot in this field, and I got to travel with her in different events. From event to event, and that's Rosemary Ellen Guiley. I got to know her quite well, and she was really important in my life, and I know all three of you had quite a bit of experiences with Rosemary. So I'm kind of wondering, as we wrap up today, if I could get some Rosemary stories from all three of you. If any of you want to chime in, not all three of you have to chime in, but if any of you have some Rosemary stories that you want to chime in with, I'd love to hear them before we go.
I actually want to comment real quick. Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
Ann Stryber.
Yeah.
Ann and I met several times. Whitley came down to San Diego. I think he had a daughter. They had a daughter here. And they met my son, who at the time was very disabled. Mm-hmm. And this was a long time ago. She became such an advocate for my son.
Oh.
So she's calling me and sending me, here's what you need to do to get unbelievable. That's why I felt like we had to include her. Mm-hmm. I mean, not only because of who she was and what she's done. She took my son under her wing and taught me how to advocate for his health.
Oh, that is awesome.
And I had to say that. I don't think it's in here. I didn't put it in here. And Rosemary, for me, was one of the very first people who helped me with my books early on. Yeah. So generous. And at the time, I had no idea that she was like someone that maybe I was a nobody and shouldn't be approaching. And did interviews and helped me with some of the first books that I did.
Yeah. Nicole?
Yeah, Rosemary, just such a kind, genuine person. I love, and I'm going to talk about her in present tense because she's still with us, as all these ladies are. She has such a confidence and such a passion for studying all the different facets of the field. I was fortunate to work with her, Waverly Hills Sanatorium. There was one night, it was 2009, we were doing an overnight investigation, and it was Nicole, Lisa, and I on one end, and then Rosemary using the Frank's box on the other, and we had all these bats flying around, and you could hear her screaming down the way. It was hilarious. It's actually a blooper segment. Troy Taylor's conference, Nicole, Lisa, and Rosemary came out, and I drove them all up to the Queen Mary, so we spent the night there. So just a lot of really good memories with her. Learned a lot from her. Yeah. Really did.
Yeah. Denise?
Well, actually, I'm very unfortunate because I never got to meet her in person.
No.
Actually talked to her, but I did know about her and listened to many, many podcasts that she was on and thought, wow, what a lady. And I have pretty much all of these books and the encyclopedia of that. I still have those, and I, will cherish those and use them as reference too for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever talked about it before. I might have, but there's one memory in particular I cherish, and that is we were doing an event at the Queen Mary, and I was wandering around the ship. I don't know. I was in between things I had to do, and I saw Rosemary just kind of wandering around one of the lobbies, and I'm like, "Hey, Rosemary," and she's like, "Hey." And she looked like she might have been a little lost. I'm like, "What's wrong?" And she goes, "I need to get something for lunch." And I was just like, "Oh no!"
I know that feeling.
And I said, "Well, I can help you with that. What would you like?" And she said, "You know what I'd really like?" And I said, "What's that?" She's like, "I'd really like to get off this ship." And I said, oh.
Go across the way, Shoreline Village. That's where it's at.
Right,
funny.
right. And I said,
funny.
"Well, you know, there's a lot of," I said, "There's a lot of restaurants over here. I have a vehicle. I'd be glad to take you wherever you want to go." And,
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
yeah. And she goes, "Really?" She goes, "Would you sit with me?" I said,
Oh my God.
I said, "Of course." I said, "Try and stop me." So we sat I said, "Well, where do you want to go?" I said, "There's, at the time, I think there was a Bubba Gump's, and there were some other places."
Oh yeah. Chili's, Gladstone's, you name it.
Yeah. And she's just
Oh my
like,
gosh, that's so cool.
"Anywhere we can sit." was her answer.
That's awesome.
So
I love it.
We went and sat and we had lunch. We had lunch for like 2.5 hours. I mean, we just sat and just conversed. And it was the best lunch I think I've ever had. So
that's amazing. See, it was all meant
Super
to be.
down
Oh my
to
gosh,
earth.
I love it.
Yeah.
So that was one of my treasured memories of Ro. So and there's if you ever get to see it, and I know she's put it out on her Facebook pages many times, Allie Cotton has taken one of the quintessential pictures of Ro, and it was taken just shortly before she passed. And Rosemary went to, I believe it was Allie's home, and they took the pictures. I want to say it was it outside her home or somewhere around her home in Southern California there. And it absolutely catches her spirit, even though she was sick at the time.
Yeah.
But she's absolutely...
I don't think I've seen this picture.
No?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I'm trying to think if I can...
Is it on her Facebook?
Yes, it's on Allie's Facebook.
I'll have to... Okay.
But, and I'm trying to think if I can pull it up while we're talking here. But it is... She looks absolutely stunning, even though she's very, very ill at the time. I want to say it was taken maybe 5 to 7 months before she passed away. Yes, here it is right here. Here's the image right here. This is the image that...
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's our right, but her left. Is that what I'm seeing correctly?
Yeah. This is, and in fact, at this point, Ro is wearing a wig. And you can't even tell that she's wearing a wig. So.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I've seen that picture, but just not that.
Yeah.
I never noticed that before.
It's an iconic image. And if I can toot Allie's horn, I don't know if she'd let me do that or not. And in fact, there's another image here. This image as well was taken by Allie. Allie has a line she calls capturing souls. And she's very talented in the fact that she manages to capture people's souls through her photography.
Yeah.
And that's, she managed
That's incredible.
She managed to capture, I don't know if I'm getting this centered for you all, and I know this is not helping our audio audience see these photos at all, but she had a way of capturing Ro right before she passed.
That's I have goosebumps right now. Oh my gosh.
So
that's incredible.
Yeah. And she absolutely, I mean, she got Rosemary so very radiant. And I've never seen pictures of Rosemary looking that radiant, especially that close to her passing. So there you go. So, yeah. So that, I hate to end it that way, but that's basically what's going on. So let me ask you this. I won't end it that way. I'll end it this way. I want to go around the horn one more time, and I'll start with you, Marie. what do you see for the future for women here in the paranormal? How do you see things shaking out, even with the way things are going with networks, with way things are going with even podcasting? How do you see things shaking out for women in the paranormal in the future?
I think it's great. I think they have shattered the glass ceiling and the walls too. And I don't think network TV is even part of the major dialogue now. I mean, women are podcasting and doing tours and radio shows, and they're out there, and, they've got their websites and they're on social media, and there is not one category under the umbrella term fringe that they are not in and working in the trenches. So I think the future is great. And the only apology that I think the three of us really have is that there were so many women later we're like, oh my God, we should have included. And then other people were telling us, you have to know about so-and-so. And it's like, this book is just, I think 32 or something like that of hundreds of women. And this is just the United States. We're not even talking internationally.
Yeah.
So they're out there.
Well said, Marie. Well said.
Yeah. Denise, Nicole, anything to add to that?
I would just add that this popped into my head is that every time we say that something can't be done, like way back and just going back really far when the movies first came out and they were all silent. And then when the talkies came out, everybody said, those are not going to be popular. And then when ebooks came out, everybody was poo-pooing that. And I was an ebook author starting in 99 when everybody was saying ebooks aren't, going to go anywhere.
Look at it now.
They are now. And I kind of see it, even if there are some kinds, networks that decide they didn't want to do paranormal programs anymore or whatever, there's going to be something that will fill in that gap. And technology is available to do that. So I just see more women all the time taking advantage of doing that and participating.
Well said. I don't have much. I mean, they hit it on the nail of the head. You know that term, sky's the limit. No, we're going beyond the sky now. We're going to galaxies. Even then is not the limit. So, women are just we're celebrating them. We're uplifting them, and we're uplifting each other. And I think that's really what's going to make this field shine all the more, is uplift each other, support each other. So that's what it's all about.
And for the younger generations coming up, they're going to be all ready to just, no boundaries, no resistance,
totally.
There you go. There you go. I was encouraged by the fact that both Katrina Wyman and Heather Taddy, first thing they did is they went right to YouTube and they killed it. So
yeah, exactly.
That was that when the networks folded up shop, boom, they were the first ones to go right to YouTube. So I was
make your own shows. Do your own investigative show. You don't need the networks anymore.
Yeah. So that was I really love that happened, and I'm rooting for them all the way. Denise, Marie, Nicole, I want to thank you so much for being on the program today. The name of the book, Women on the Fringe, Groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal. We have a link in the description of this program. Ladies, thank you so much for taking so much time with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim.
This is great. This is really, really fun, Tim.
I know.
Really great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. I want to thank Denise, Marie, and Nicole for being with me on today's show. Wonderful show today. Enjoyed my time with all three of them. Women on the Fringe, Groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal is the name of the book. I encourage you to grab a copy of that book. It is in the description of this program. There's a link for you to click on there to get it. Now, folks, this book deals with women who are currently in the paranormal, women who are currently working in the field, women who are currently making a difference in the field. With the exception of the in memoriam section of the book, really every single woman in this book is making strides in the paranormal and is making a difference. So really, I encourage you not just to pick up this book if you want to give this to a woman who is wanting to make strides in the paranormal. I encourage you to give this to anybody who is influenced by the paranormal, who, whether it be man, woman, child, whoever, who wants to learn more about the paranormal. There are some very, very interesting theories in this book, and it spans the gamut from ghost to cryptid to really UFOs, every single corner of the paranormal. So really is an an excellently put together book. I know it's probably not proper English, but and all three of them would slay me for that. But I really did enjoy my time with the book and sitting down and getting to learn about each one of these ladies. So I highly encourage you to sit down with this book and get to know each and every person in this book and glean a little bit of knowledge from each one as well, because really there's some great resources in this book. So go ahead and check it out. Women on the Fringe, Groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal. It's by Denise, Agnew, Marie D. Jones, and Nicole Strickland. And by the way, we are going to have Nicole back to talk about one of her recent releases. So that's coming up here. Probably in June, we'll have Nicole back on the program. We're still working out a time to bring her back. But I'd love to sit down with Nicole again and talk about her newest release. So I look forward to that as well. Folks, coming up on the weekend, a couple of notes for you before I let you go today. One, check the shop at darknessradioshow.com. I'll be adding some stuff to the shop, little knick-knacky items, little fun things for you to peruse. Of course, we have Mother's Day coming up, so there'll be some fun little things for Mother's Day in there. Some other stuff for Mother's Day as well. Before Mother's Day, we'll have some fairy houses put up by Junkin Pixie, which is intern Yoko's shop. We'll put up some stuff there as well. You'll be able to pay by PayPal in there, so check that out. Let's see, what else? I know people have asked me about T-shirts and hoodies. We're still working on some stuff with a graphic designer on that. I've had some issues with resizing and stuff like that. So, but those are coming shortly as well. Let's see, what else? I'm just thinking of housekeeping stuff. Got some great guests coming down the line, folks. And keep them coming. If there's somebody you want to hear here on the show, drop me a line, tim@darknessradio.com. And as well, if you have Parashare stories, tim@darknessradio.com, or go to darknessradioshow.com, click on that blue button, leave us a voice note. And we want to play your Parashare stories as well on the show here. So, and get to those Parashare stories here on Supernatural News. We want to hear your experiences. We heard a lot of experiences of other people here today, but of course we want to hear yours as well. So get them into us and we'll read them off here on Wednesdays. We'd love to hear your experiences on the show. I think that's about it for the week. Again, another great week here on Supernatural News. I want to thank Brad Blair for being on True Crime Tuesday this week. I want to thank Denise and Marie and Nicole for being on today. I want to thank both Mally Fox and Jessica Freeberg for doing a bang-up job this week. And again, I know people keep asking me, where's Beer City Bruiser? And I'll tell them every week. He's taking care of some business at home. They've been dealing with home repairs, and he's making his way back. I don't have an ETA on it, but he is making his way back to the show. So there you go. Be a light in someone's darkness this weekend, folks. Here in the Twin Cities, we got a little bit of a mixed bag this weekend for weather, but it should be a nice weekend. So get out and help somebody with yard work, or get out and help somebody maybe with a charitable cause, or get out and help somebody with something this weekend. If you're having some good weather, get out and enjoy it and spend some time for you. Life is short, so maybe help somebody at the same time that you're helping yourself. Find a way to combine the causes, because life is short. And we do need to help each other. That's the only way the world goes around, is if we can be there for one another. That'll do it for this week. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. Love you, appreciate you, and we'll see you on the flip side. You've been listening to the best in paranormal programming. This is Darkness Radio.